This is FCA's Beyond the Game, where faith meets sports. We go beyond the post-game sound bites to real conversations with coaches and athletes who lead by example in every game, match, meet, or moment. We're glad you're here. Now, let's go beyond the game.
Welcome to FCA's Beyond the Game. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Mike Leeser. Thrilled to be joined today by a Hall of Famer, a legend, Cy Young winner, World Series champion. I don't know, maybe we'll stop right there because we'll take up the whole episode. But John Smoltz. John, thanks so much for taking some time to be with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So start us off, we'll kind of go back. I don't know if I knew this. I saw if you had not been drafted, you were headed to Michigan State, right? Not
That's
only
right.
for baseball, but also for basketball. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I grew up in Lansing, Michigan, born in Warren, just outside of Detroit. I don't come from a sports family, come from a musical family. My mom and dad were both accordion teachers. My dad owned his own business, played in a band for over 50 years. And when we got to Lansing, I never really was introduced to sports. I watched it on TV. And I was playing the accordion when I was 4 years old till about seven, practicing really hard. Not an easy instrument to play, not the coolest instrument to play. And fortunately for my parents, they allowed me to pursue athletics. I really wanted to play sports. It started in basketball, baseball, t-ball, and I just self-taught in everything I've ever done. So I had always planned on my passion was basketball, but baseball was something I was a little more gifted at. And I think for me, um, trying to go play at Michigan State in basketball was going to be a challenge, but one that I was looking forward to. I had more offers at smaller schools, but of course, baseball was going to be my future. But I was going to try to play both at Michigan State, and Tom Izzo was the assistant coach then. Judd Heathcote was the head coach, and we had kind of worked it out. I'd gone to This is how crazy my journey was. I was negotiating a contract with the Detroit Tigers. They drafted me in the 22nd round, which was way too late for me, and I wasn't going to go unless I got first round money. I had gone through orientation at Michigan State, picked out my dorms, my classes, and Monday was going to be my first, entry into college. Sunday night at 9 o'clock, I signed a professional contract with the Tigers. We worked out a deal, and my life drastically changed from that point on. So, no Michigan State, right into the professional. Was going to be the minor leagues, but there were no minor leagues at that time. So the only place they could take me was with the big league club, who finished the season in September, right after winning the World Series in '84. And
Wow.
I'm with all the guys that I idolized for a month, like no one else has gotten this experience. So it's crazy last month of my life and drastically turned in a bunch of different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what 4 or 5 years after the Magic Johnson run, like Michigan State basketball is, the pinnacle.
It's
So
exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah, I followed Magic when he was in high school, at Lansing Everett. I followed him at Michigan State. And I was at the stadium with my dad when they had won it, came back, and we were all screaming 2 more years when they came and hoisted the trophy. And of course, he went hardship and went pro, and the rest is history there. But
Yeah.
there were so many players that were going to come play with Magic if he stayed, and it would have changed the whole dynamic maybe of Michigan State basketball. But those were some glory years, 1978. Magic and Bird. I remember where I was when we watched the game at my house. It was phenomenal.
Yeah. I think that was the game that I feel like made March Madness, right? Like it
Yeah.
it took off from there. Well, give us kind of the scouting report. What did the draft rob us from a basketball player, John Smoltz? What would we have gotten out of you?
You'd have got a really, really determined point guard that can handle the ball, can score if you need to, but I'd like to pass before I'd shoot. And I had to learn two different styles in high school, playing in Lansing Waverly against some unbelievable talent. My senior year, I played in the All-State All-Star game against Glenn Rice, Roy Marble, B.J. Armstrong, Lloyd Vaught, Mark Hughes, seven NBA
Yeah.
players, and that's when I told my dad. Now that, in fairness, I was in the middle of baseball when they asked me to play in that tournament, or in that game. I was not in basketball shape. But I couldn't turn it down. And so it did make me realize, trying to guard BJ Armstrong, Andre Rison, who was a really good basketball player but played football, at Michigan State in the NFL. I told my dad, I said, Dad, we're going full bore baseball after
That was
this.
it.
But I played highly competitive basketball after I retired to about 52 years old. Loved every second. I played in 3 leagues, which was way too much. It's probably why I have 2 new hips. But basketball to me, playing the game the right way, the strategy of it, you could get more out of that talent in playing the game a certain way than if you were, super talented and just, you know, better than everybody else. So I
Yeah.
love that part of it. I coached for 2 years, which was the greatest experience of my life of freshman basketball. I actually did it for 4 years, 2 years of seventh grade, 2 years of freshman, learned a lot about myself. Teaching kids the game of basketball was one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done. I wish I could still do it today, but I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, basketball still, I love watching college basketball.
Yeah, coaching middle school basketball, that's some special lessons you get
Yes.
out of that. That's for sure. Yeah, I've had my fair share of middle school games. Yes, interesting for sure. I think back, basketball. I love basketball as my sport. Had delusions of going and playing college, whatever. Back in the day, I think my moment of okay, maybe this isn't the best plan. We had a summer camp in high school, and Raymond Felton lined up
Mm.
across from me, and coach says, "You got him," and I blink, and he's laying it up, and I'm still in my stance, going, "What just happened?" So yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing the difference how elite you have to be. So that's impressive to be able to could have done both. Yeah, that's strong. And then I know you're big time into golf. So is that something you picked up later in life, or is that something you were playing kind of around the same time?
Yeah, I picked it up later. In Michigan, all I did was play basketball, football, and never put on, and obviously baseball. Never put on ice skates or ski. Never golfed. Never fished. And some of those things, I look back and go, how did I not do that in the state that I grew up? I got to A ball, Lakeland, Florida, and I was born out of my mind, just bored. I mean, I'm
Mm,
like, once every 5 days, I'm pitching, and what am I going to do in those 4 days? Picked up golf and fishing, loved them both, but golf became the gravity. I gravitated to that more than I did fishing once I learned how to play golf. And I've done it my whole life since, and it's really filled the competitive void that happens when your expiration date comes to your sport.
mm,
And now we've started a new league called the Pro uh, Golf League for retired athletes. I'm the commissioner. I'm involved from the beginning to hopefully to the end of this. So I'm kind of a visionary. Like I like to think things through and create things. One of the things I thought I would never do, I realized God has given me a reverse bucket list,
mm.
or at least I'm living out my reverse bucket list because I said I would never write a book. I did that, kind of did it too quick. Never thought I'd start a Christian school. That's been 25 years in the making, which is an incredible journey. Never thought I would broadcast. There's a lot of things I'm checking off that I said I'd never do. So it's pretty cool to live that out in a way that isn't what my desire was,
Yeah.
but to follow certain passions and to see things from the ground up is really incredible. And, my sports and my baseball career will always have stats for lifetime, but the things that I got to do away from the field, impact in the community, charity, and of course the Christian school will go down as one of the biggest things in my life that I never thought were possible, that God has taken me through.
That's awesome. Yeah. I there's a lot of things I think I've said, I'll never do. I think one of them was I'll never drive a minivan, and I think we had two when I was a kid. So I learned real quick, never say never.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just hearing your story, your background. I know you've been vocal about this, but it just seems like athletes now, like it's by age 10, 11, you got to decide, okay, this is my sport, right? I'm gonna play
Yeah.
baseball year round. That's my only chance to make it, whatever that means. So which I think just robs our kids of that experience. Cause I grew up the same way. It was whatever season it was, that's the sport you played. And,
Yeah.
it helped you to be, more well-rounded athlete. But, you know, what's your take on that? What you see in the world of sports these days, and just how it's been monetized and just where things seem to be going, where they are, but where they seem to be going.
Yeah, to state an obvious, we live in a very confusing world that has not a lot of great roads to what we think is the way to go. And I use an analogy of the ocean. I use it in my personal faith. I use it in the journey of the world or anything. You can fill in the blank to this analogy. When you think of an ocean, you think about getting in an ocean, just having an inner tube and sitting in an inner tube and never paddle. The ocean and the current will take you to a place you never intended to go. And the next thing you know, you can't believe where you are. And next thing you know, you can't believe what you've done. And that can be applied to everything. Like, it doesn't mean, that current, you get caught up in currents that in life and in this world that maybe were started off for good, end up being in bad.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you don't recognize where you are. You've given up certain liberties and you've done things and chasing a reward system that's a false reward system. And so along that line of questioning, we have robbed our kids of enjoyment, peace, happiness, fun. We've turned them into many, many, many adults way too early. We've got a monetized system that is created. Like, again, it might have been started out for good. Like, the internet, I really believe was intended to be good. And now look what the internet has turned into.
Yeah,
that's
true.
life. And that's what happens in sports. It doesn't matter how much experience, how much wisdom, doesn't matter the people before you, what they're telling you is wrong. They are chasing and are caught in a current that has allowed the parents to think they're doing the best for their child. They're actually damaging the development and the longevity of their child. And because entities don't care about the longevity, they only care about the buck and they care about the expertise they're providing. I'm a lost voice in a world that played 21 years in baseball. So if I held a free clinic next week and had all the parents of 8-year-olds come to talk and to give them the wisdom that I had, along with the technology and the information that we now have today, they would act as if I never played the game and don't know anything.
Yeah.
And yet we are pushing through stop sign after stop sign after stop sign. It's like expecting to drive a car and know that those stop signs are there for your protection, but you don't care because you're going to run through them. Eventually, you're going to get in an accident.
Yeah.
We do that in life. We do that in our faith journey. We do that in youth sports. Youth sports is out of control. And it's been out of control for a long time. And the people that are trying to provide stop signs, parents are blowing right through it. I've got 3 grandkids now, and they're all going to be athletic. And 7-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. My son-in-law is 6'11", so you can imagine where those kids are going to be. And I tell parents all the time, you think you're choosing the sport for your child, you're wrong. The sport usually chooses you. So my daughter growing up in sports, my son-in-law growing up in sports, they know this, and they at least have a buffer that they can balance the difference between my 7-year-old grandson is a really good baseball player, but chances are he's not going to get to play baseball if he turns 6'10", right?
Yeah.
There are things in sports that we just, again, don't pay attention to because the information overrides. And I used to call it, maybe it's still applicable, that we're running a Heinz 52 catch-up theory. Like, every parent's trying to catch up to the latest, greatest, and the person next to them. And it doesn't guarantee anything. And I'll end with this. I want so bad for a city, a councilman, just any city to do this theory for me. Take the top 5 athletes, 10 or 12 years old, pay the parents, because you're going to have to pay the parents because they're going to go crazy or already give them counseling. Don't allow that child in each sport, top 5, the city of Alpharetta, take the top 5 athletes. Don't let them play for 2 years. They can practice, but don't let them play. Nothing competitive. Parents are going to freak out. They're going to think their child has fallen behind. And my argument, unscientifically, is that in 2 years, they'll still be the top 5 players in each sport.
Yeah.
They don't understand the genetics of it. They don't understand the opportunity that these kids have been given. So my point is, what are we doing? We're paying for 3 scholarships to go to college with all the efforts and money spent pre-college to get that scholarship that you've already paid for 2. So I could spend hours on it. I've tried to speak to it. I spent a good 3 to 5 minutes of my Hall of Fame speech. And yet it really does feel like it falls on deaf ears because it goes back to that current. The current is taking everybody this way. And until parents can wake up and see
Yeah.
that chasing money or chasing this scholarship is short-sighted in many ways.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just sad. Like, yeah, I've got kids, we've played rec ball, here and there, but you just see so many kids, the pressure, the anxiety, the fear, everything all in one, just, it robs them. Like it is not fun for them. And then, I've had several, athletes that, I've discipled with FCA, I had one, lacrosse was his sport. That's all he played, year round. He's doing this tournament, this showcase all over the place. In his senior year, we're talking, he's like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah. Burned out.
Just burned out at 17 years old. Everything was building up to this moment. Now it's, do I really want this? But
yeah,
but I don't know what it's going to take for that tide to change. Because most parents are like, well, that may be true for everybody else, but not for us. This is right for us. But, and then the fear side of it from these, coaches and program owners, whatever, oh, you got to do this. If you don't, you're robbing your kid. And as a parent, that's the last thing you want to do. So it's hard. So,
Well, I've stepped back and I made a mistake when I just got out of high school. As a fan of my former high school, they were in the playoffs and I lost my mind in the stands.
Mm.
I went to an embarrassing state when I felt like my team was getting robbed by the officials. I've seen it universally because I'm clear-headed now. I don't do that anymore. Ever since that day, my kids used to tell me, "Why do you never say anything in the stands?" And I said, I learned a lesson, a painful lesson, and I watch parents that shouldn't be in stands. I watch coaches that have no business coaching.
Yeah.
We are underdeveloping the purpose of what we're trying to do. I've said two things to one player who deserved to never really be playing in that game. It was a female soccer player. And I said one thing to her, and I said one thing to a youth coach, and walked up to him after the game and said, "You're an embarrassment to coaching, and you should never be allowed to coach again."
Mm.
And he looked at me like I had three heads, but hopefully it sunk in.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've never said a word because the value of sitting in a stand screaming at an official or a coach or a player has no value, and it doesn't do anything to set a precedent. So it's hard because you watch things that you go, it's out of control. I mean, I just watched a 7-year-old playoff basketball game, and it was getting intense. And it's like we lose the value because we can't sit back and separate what is important and what is not. And that is I tell parents all the time, go to a little league baseball game and promise me you don't say anything and just watch the environment.
Yeah.
Little Johnny's at the plate and everyone's screaming at him, keep your head down, don't swing. If he could do these things, he would be able to make those adjustments.
Yeah.
So all these screams of encouragement are actually not, they're discouraging because the child doesn't have a ability to know how to do that yet. So all well intended, but sometimes it gets mixed into you've crossed the line. And I wish there was a line at every game that people could see visually and someone could tap you on the shoulder and goes, "Young man, you've crossed the line.
Yep.
Young lady, you've crossed the line." Obviously that
penalty
doesn't.
box.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'll never forget my youngest. I think it was his first year playing. He's probably 6 years old playing basketball, just out there, hadn't been able to get a shot, hadn't, scored all season. It's the last game of the year. And, they got a chance and he's in the corner, like short corner. And I'm, right behind him. And ball comes to it. And I'm yelling, "Just shoot, catch it, shoot." He just turned around and said, "Would you stop yelling at me?" Like he couldn't even process. I'm like, okay, he doesn't thrive in that moment. So yeah, it is. And, but so much of what we're talking about, the trying to place value in these things that won't bring you value, that won't bring you purpose, won't bring you joy in the sports world. I mean, it translates, so seamlessly into our world.
Yeah.
And all the many issues we see, all over the place. It's because we're chasing things that we think are going to fill that hole. Right. And then we get it and we go, "Wait, I'm still feel empty."
Yeah.
Why is that? so many of our athletes, if I could just get to, the big leagues, or if I could just get a D1 scholarship, right? They think then they'll be fulfilled. But they don't have Jesus. They don't have that faith. They don't have that relationship with him. And so until they do, they don't realize.
Yeah.
So kind of tell us, share with us your journey in that. Like, where were you? When did that kind of click for you, your faith and your walk with the Lord?
Yeah, I basically grew up in a home that my dad was almost a priest. He didn't feel the calling to go full, and he got pardoned. Grew up in a very loving home, very truth-oriented home, and I was taught a lot of good moral fiber character things that I live by today. Um, but it was always man's attempt to reach, it was religion, and didn't understand it for the longest time. I was a player that was very focused, very determined, didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't cuss, all the do's and don'ts in life. I felt like was all put upon me as God gave me these talents and everything else was up to me. I was very, very people pleasing and wanted to do right. So there's not a lot of things wrong with that, except my perspective and freedom in life, of course, was still built on a foundation of a world that if I did right, did good, all these things was going to get me to heaven. How good is good enough, right? And I thought that for the longest time till I got to the big leagues. I was challenged early in AAA by Jose Alvarez, Marty Clary, two solid Christians who cared after my heart and kept prompting me to take a look at what my journey was like and what my foundation would be like. But when it came to saying the prayer, going to chapel, going to church, I did all those things,
Yeah.
100%. I make an argument that I prayed the Lord's Prayer of salvation more than anybody in the history. Didn't because I wanted to do it because it was right.
Yeah.
And but I also look back at my life, and God's hand on my life has been such a protection of you can't make this up, and people are going to think I'm exaggerating when I say this. I've never been in a compromising situation. I've never seen somebody do drugs. I've never been offered drugs. I'm 58 years old. That's impossible.
Yeah.
I lived and breathed baseball for all my life and never was in a situation where it felt like, I could get in trouble or I saw trouble. So I was very sheltered and protected by choice and by God's hand. But along the way, I was still living a rocky life of conviction of it was all based in my wins and losses. If I won, I could go to the mall and feel good, literally. If
Yeah.
I lost, I stayed at home and didn't leave the home because I felt like I was letting my family and friends down. So a lot of my life was built in that realm. And Sid Bream at the big leagues challenged me to look at my life, and it really caught me off guard. Like, I'm not living life wrong. Like when it came to living life, I had that down in my mind because I didn't sway or view or go away from what was right. But I didn't have a lot of grace in my life because I was always built around truth. So that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
And it didn't dawn on me until my ups and downs in my career had some really good highs, some really big lows, and I was living that life of a people pleaser. And in 1995, we go on to win the World Series, which is incredible in and of itself. And I was battling injuries here and there, pitching through them, had my scopes of my elbow, and was kind of really, never had this clean year. Well, in 1995, after we won the World Series, I sat down with my chaplain, Walt Wiley, and I asked him a series of questions. But the one question I asked him was, I understand what you have conveyed. I understand the message. I understand, I believe in all the things you're talking about. But what prevents me from living my life the way I want to? And then at the age of 42, I'll turn it over to the Lord,
Yeah.
as you've asked.
Yeah.
And his answer was quite interesting because it wasn't combative. It was very like nonchalant, like, hey, really nothing prevents you from doing that with one tiny exception. You may not get to your target date.
Mm.
And I mean, the lights went off.
Mm.
It was like a bell. I'm like, whoa, I'm a risk taker in golf, a risk taker in baseball. I do not want to be a risk taker in that part of my life. And I really understood that I needed a vertical relationship versus a horizontal one. It was really placing that trust, not just the words that you say, but a heartfelt contract to say, okay, I'm giving it to you. I'm a warrior. I want to be the very best version of a base. I'm going to get in and mix it up, but that I have the ability with truth and grace to ask for forgiveness, and to know that I'm a sinner. And so that personal relationship changed everything for me. It didn't mean my road was going to be smoother, but in 1996, I didn't go into a lot of details. I went on a quest with my own family. I had a pocket Bible. I started really trying to reach everybody in my family of something that for the first time, like the bell went off, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to tell people. I didn't go on a quest and one on one with the players. I wasn't overtly like trying to, I'm the hammer, you're the nail. I was trying to live my life with consistency. And in 1996, I came to the spring training and I told all the reporters, first thing I did is I walked in and I told the coaches, it's my turn.
Mm.
I'm going to win the Cy Young this year. I said, Maddox's run is over. And I kind of chuckled. I'm not arrogant. I am the last cocky person there is, but I felt that I was going to be something different this year based on this transformation. And I told the coaches, and they were like, oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah, take
And I
that.
told the reporters, the first time I got to meet with the scrum of reporters, I said, listen, you're going to find a different guy this year. And I said, whether I lose my first game and win my next 14, you're not going to know a difference. Do you know that's exactly how it went down? I
Wow.
lost my first game, won my next 14. Tim Cash, a mentor of mine, he was our first chaplain, and then he became a pastor in the church. He had me read Philippians every single day. Now, as
Mm.
naive as I am, and as much as I don't retain, the first question I asked was, how many books are in Philippians?
Yep.
Because I was concerned, and I realized that that was something I needed to do to retrain my brain, to reset the focus, and to forget the past and all the things that I was really having a hard time letting go. Well, I go on to win the Cy Young that year, 24 games. I'd never won more than 15. I look back and I think it was God was preparing me for success.
Mm.
Success is all I wanted,
Yeah.
but I was living it through a different way. So from that point on, 96 through where I'm in now, hasn't been a perfect life, but God has given me a platform of peace and a stability to know that anything I go through or anything that happens to me cannot rock the foundation of who He is and what He does. So the world gives you a very different connotation. For the
Yep.
longest time, it was not popular to do things and stand in the gap and state your purpose. You were a freak. Now it's more commonplace. Now
Yep.
it's more welcoming and more refreshing to see college athletes boldly proclaiming and understanding that there's significance in who they are. And then lastly, I would say I got to experience in my sport, my world, one of the ultimate calls was the Hall of Fame.
Mm.
The Hall of Fame was not my ending place. It's not the significance of who I am. And I got to share that my real Hall of Fame is heaven. And I know I'm going to be there based on my acceptance and belief in Christ. So I never tell people it's easy. I never tell people I've got it licked. Matter of fact, I'm streaky at best, but I know where I came from and whose I am and whom I belong to, and that I never try to get too carried away in what's going on currently.
Man, that's strong. What a story, and just a great message, for our athletes and those that are be following along. I think there is a thought that, okay, I've given my life to the Lord. Now He's gonna, pave the way for me. I know for you, I mean, just your story. When you have your Tommy John surgery, and then you make the transition from being a starter to a closer, and not only made the transition but dominated. I mean, just you're dominant as a starter, dominant as a closer, and then make the transition back to being a starter again. And just that, the level that you pitched at is just unbelievable. I mean, I'm sure there's others that have done that, but I don't know if anybody's ever done that at the level you did. How did your faith play a role in that when you're, probably wondering, like, am I going to pitch again? Am I going to
Yeah.
start? Like, just how was your faith driving you during that time?
Well, it was essential because emotionally, there's a lot of things that we can make decisions that don't end up well for us.
Mm.
I believe I'm a very an emotional pitcher, but I had a general rule that never make a decision within 24 hours of your emotion. Being grounded with like-minded people and being in fellowship with the people that had my heart over my performance really helped make a lot of decisions. But during that time, a lot of rocky things happened. You talk about the Tommy John. Emotionally, I retired. Tommy John called me himself and gave me encouragement to keep on and keep pursuing. I told you I have the warrior mindset, but at the same time, I understand that I was never going to get out in front of myself unless the Lord, and you ask him. The hardest thing about anyone who understands coming to faith in the early part of their career, like I don't see him, there's nothing I touch, but to trust your heart and to trust the significance of where he wants you to go and what he wants you to do. I believe we can do a lot of great things on his behalf that he never intended us to do.
No.
I think that's the self-worth thing that allows us to feel complete in what we can give and do for others. It's when we're at our emptiest, it's when he can do things through us. And I've gotten empty 3 times in my life where significant change and a journey was lived out that had nothing to do with me.
Mm.
And so to go through all of that, to change in my career, people don't understand how hard that was. My faith sustained me through it all. There were some times that it looked awful and I got booed, and significance of who I am was not tied in my jersey or my name. Finally, I could rest on that from 96 on. And you know what? When I look back again, it was all ordained in a way where I think the illustration of Jesus sitting on a footstool and you're running a lap and you think you've done things for him and he just goes, run another one, run another one. And then by the 10th one, when you got no more left, I think he goes, okay, now I can use you. And I think that is a good illustration of where I was, because I was trying to do everything for him when the reality is, was I available for him?
Yeah.
Like, was I at a place where I could go, uncle, I give?
No.
And I think that in and of itself gets very confusing for people, because there's nothing wrong with attaining to be the best. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with being the top CEO or the greatest athlete. But if that's what your significance is, if everything is poured into that, then there's everything wrong with that. Because then then he's sitting on that footstool and he's like, well, you're going to do your thing. And I don't need you. Like, God used very ordinary people
Yeah.
to do his ministry. So um, listening and understanding his calling and his purpose is maturity. And it's years after running out of the things that you think are important and that you think you can give.
Yeah. Almost like you can hear him saying, "You tired yet? You ready
Exactly.
to? Are you done? You ready to
I
surrender now?"
love the
Okay.
I love the
Yeah.
illustration. It was a Seinfeld illustration when they're trying to see how far they can get the car empty,
Yeah.
and it goes it goes below
It's
that
below
is
the needle,
like
baby. It
there's
broke off.
exactly, and we do that a lot in life. Like
Yeah.
we think getting filled up is the purpose
Right.
when we could stay filled up. And most of us, at least myself, we get that needle too close to empty for no reason other than our own,
Yeah.
and then asked to be filled up again.
I'm just hearing, "Oh, Mr. Kramer, I've never felt so alive." And he said, "That's a weird thing to say." Oh, that's great. The sports and Seinfeld, we can go a long way there. Well, I mean, just gold. What you're sharing is such a great word, and I can't wait for our athletes, our coaches, our audience to hear that. And just it's the only thing. It's the only
Yeah.
relationship with him is the only thing that's gonna fulfill us.
And I
And
would say this, because I'm nowhere close to perfect. And I would always tell people wherever I speak, don't listen to my words, check them out for yourself, and what the Bible says. And know your strengths and weaknesses and what would entice you and doesn't. Because the reason I don't have any social media is because I know I wouldn't do well with it.
yeah,
I just wouldn't. And a lot of people have been stuck in that lane and they're just so focused on what people think about them and what they do. I could literally care less. And so I would care a lot if I had it. And I would want to, my old self might be creeping back in, and that people pleasing, like, okay, let's meet and talk about it.
yeah,
And there's no value in that.
yeah,
So I think in the world, in the current, going back to the current, if I live in that current, I got a chance to really do a disservice to myself. My kids now get it. They're all old. They're all out of the house, 26 to 34, and they finally realized, like, Dad, it was probably best you didn't have it,
mm,
and not a lot of good would have come with it. But you
yeah,
think about that and what we're chasing and what we're going for. The world is so enticing with technology and dangerous pitfalls, and before you know it, you think oh, that's just innocent, and then it's not. And
yeah,
so athletes today have a harder chance of life based on what's out there for them, what they're getting known for, what they're trying to create, influencers, and
Yeah.
all the different thing. You were truly, I think, the good Lord has a sense of humor when he goes, "Really, influencers? That's what you
What we're
think?"
doing. Yeah.
Exactly. And so just being able to be bold now and just seeing some of the athletes do the things that stand for, that lose a job or lose their priorities because of it, I I I would only want to encourage them to trust them that they're not really losing anything.
Yeah.
And what is it, a man to profit the world, gain the
Lose
world,
whole world.
lose. There's so many things
Yeah.
that biblically we try to think we got on our own, but it's there for our benefit.
Yeah. It's like that Jesus guy knew what he was talking about, all those years ago. Still applies today.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's what's most encouraging to me with especially the athletes now. I think we went through a time where, we were afraid to be vocal because the cameras are always on. You're going to get caught doing something, whatever. But I feel like we've entered this time of boldness where they're just so bold for the Lord. They're not worried
Yeah,
about that. And they're living
exactly.
for him. And so it's encouraging. I feel like the pendulum is swinging there. I'd love for the pendulum to swing where we finally one day say, you know what, this social media thing is, that's enough,
Yeah.
so we shut it all down, but who knows if we'll ever get there. Well, John, this has been phenomenal. So appreciative of your time. Really grateful and looking forward to seeing you again on Major League Baseball broadcast coming up. You're coming off one of the best World Series, I think I can ever remember. So it's a fun time to be a baseball fan. Anything else you'd like to share with us?
I just say in closing, I think the one thing that being a warrior, I got to remind myself, even speaking to you right now, is that we got to be equipped. You can't just go out without your gear. And the
That's
Lord's
it.
given us gear. He's given us a word. He's given us opportunity to defend ourselves, to be protected. Not guaranteeing that life's going to be easy, but I just think sometimes the busyness of life, and I fall victim of that a lot. Whether it's trying to get the pro off the ground and really going, or trying to get the Christian school. I mean, we get inundated with a lot of things. And the reminder that I need, and that I think a lot of us need, is He's given us all that we need to fight the good fight and really live in this world, because it's temporary,
Yep.
but we have to live in it. And so equipping us and reminding us that, the word is there for us, for our protection, and to go forth and to carry it in a bold way. So I'm thankful for this time, just even as a reminder to me,
Yeah.
that is a daily process and a daily journey that can be better lived than just going out and going by the seat of your pants and then going, oh shoot, all right,
Yep.
now I need them. So
Yeah.
that's really what encourages me.
Yeah. We talk about our house daily, put it on the armor of God that Paul talks about in Ephesians.
Yep.
And being ready. What I love about that imagery is it's all front facing armor. So you're charging into battle. It's not, doesn't protect, the back, because you can't retreat, you
That's
just got to
exactly
keep
right.
charging forward. So, well, thank you so much. This has been great. And it's been an honor to have you on. And we so appreciate it. But
My pleasure.
thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Beyond the Game. Go like and subscribe on all our social media platforms, on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.